The sun-bleached plains of Red Willow Ranch stretched out endlessly as Ethan Cole stepped down from the dusty pickup truck, his boots sinking slightly into the dry earth. He paused, letting the crisp morning air settle in his lungs. This was his first day as a simple farmhand, a job he had taken out of necessity, not desire, but something about the quiet vastness comforted him. He hoped it would be a place where he could disappear for a while. Across the yard, the rhythmic thud of boots striking the ground drew his attention. Caleb Ward, the ranch owner, approached with a stride that revealed years of work under the sun. Tall, broad-shouldered, and composed, Caleb carried the kind of presence that made people straighten up without being told. His hat cast a shadow across his eyes, but Ethan could feel the weight of his gaze even from a distance. "You must be Ethan," Caleb said, extending a hand. His voice was steady, controlled, almost stern. Ethan nodded and shook his hand, surprised at the strength in Caleb's grip. "Yes, sir. Ready to start." Caleb studied him for a moment before gesturing toward the barn. "Here on Red Willow, we follow rules. They're simple, but they aren't negotiable. As long as you respect them, you'll do just fine." Ethan nodded again, but something in Caleb's tone made him curious. "What kind of rules?" Caleb opened the large sliding barn door, revealing neatly stacked hay bales and polished equipment arranged with near-military precision. "Rule number 1, stay focused on your work. Distractions are how people get hurt out here." Ethan agreed silently. It made sense. Ranch work demanded attention. "Rule number 2, Caleb continued, listen to instructions the first time. I'm responsible for everyone on this land." They walked deeper inside the barn, the scent of hay thick in the air. Ethan noticed how spotless everything was, unexpected for a place that handled animals daily. "And rule number 3, Caleb added, turning to him with a seriousness that made Ethan straighten instinctively, "no getting personal with the boss. Or with anyone who's already taken." Ethan blinked, unsure how to respond. It was a strangely specific rule, but he didn't ask questions. Maybe he shouldn't. "Understood." Caleb nodded once and shifted back into work mode. "Good. I'll show you the horse stalls." As they moved through the stables, Ethan couldn't help observing Caleb more closely, not out of attraction, though that suspicion flickered at the edges, but out of curiosity. Caleb was disciplined, detached, and almost guarded. He carried himself like a man who had seen trouble before and had chosen strict order as his shield. Ethan had come here to avoid complications, not to create them. Whatever Caleb's rules were about, Ethan promised himself he would follow them. By midday, Ethan had already proven he wasn't afraid of hard labor. He worked quietly, efficiently, determined not to give Caleb any reason to doubt him. Still, every time Caleb walked by, Ethan sensed a shift in the air, subtle but present, like an unspoken tension. During a brief break, Ethan sat on a stack of hay outside the barn, wiping sweat from his forehead. He watched Caleb on the far side of the corral, instructing 2 senior ranch hands. Caleb's gestures were sharp but respectful, and the others listened with clear trust. It was obvious he was a man used to being in control. Ethan's attention drifted again, but he pulled it back, reminding himself of the rule, stay focused. When Caleb finished speaking with the others, he walked toward Ethan, not with irritation, but with measured intention. "You're keeping up well," Caleb said. "Most newcomers burn out by noon." Ethan offered a small smile. "I needed the work. And the quiet." Caleb studied his expression for a moment longer than necessary. "Quiet can be good," he said, almost gently. Then he added, "but isolation can trick a man into thinking things he shouldn't." Ethan wasn't entirely sure what Caleb meant, but he didn't press. "I understand." Caleb gave a slow nod. "Good. Then, more softly, just remember the rules." As Caleb walked away, Ethan felt a mixture of curiosity and unease. The man was clearly protecting something personal, and Ethan had no intention of stepping into trouble. Yet he couldn't ignore the strange tension that lingered every time Caleb looked his way. The first day on the ranch had barely begun, but Ethan sensed that Red Willow held more secrets than fences. And as the sun dipped slightly toward the horizon, he realized he wasn't sure whether he should feel grateful, or wary. Still, he stayed. And the story, quietly, had only just begun. Ethan woke before sunrise, though he hadn't really slept. The hum of the city filtered through his thin window, distant traffic, early footsteps, the quiet rhythm of another day beginning. But for him, time felt suspended. The decision he'd been avoiding pressed on his chest like a stone that he sat by the window with a cold cup of coffee, watching the pale orange light stretch across the skyline. His thoughts drifted back to Mr. Cole's offer. Every time he tried to reject it outright, a harsh whisper of reality followed: "You don't have the rent. You don't have anywhere else to go." When the clock struck 9, a knock came, soft, deliberate. Ethan's heart pounded. He opened the door to find Mr. Cole standing there, calm as ever, a paper cup of coffee in one hand. "You've made up your mind?" Cole asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer right away. Words caught in his throat. He simply nodded once, a gesture heavy with conflict. Mr. Cole's eyes flickered, something like regret, and he motioned for Ethan to follow. The hallway felt colder than usual. Each step echoed, measured, like the countdown to something irreversible. When they reached Mr. Cole's apartment, Ethan hesitated. The door opened to a softly lit space, warm, clean, faintly scented with lavender and old books. It was nothing like he expected. A table was set for two. Simple food. A single candle flickering between them. No tension, no threat, just quiet civility. Mr. Cole gestured to a chair. "Eat something," he said. "You look like you haven't in days." Ethan sat, unsure what to feel. He noticed the older man's hands, steady, careful, as he poured wine into 2 glasses. The air between them was awkward but strangely gentle. "I didn't invite you here to make you feel small," Mr. Cole began, his voice low. "I know what it means to be cornered by life. I wasn't trying to buy you. He trailed off, searching for words. "I've been alone a long time, Ethan. Maybe I asked the wrong way." Ethan looked down at his plate. "You still asked," he said softly. "I know." Cole sighed, leaning back. "And you're free to walk away. The offer stands, but so does your dignity." That disarmed Ethan more than any demand could have. He expected pressure, not understanding. Something about Mr. Cole's tone, quiet, remorseful, made him stay. For the first time in weeks, he felt seen, even if he didn't want to admit it. As dinner went on, conversation filled the silence. They spoke about ordinary things, music, books, the changing seasons. Cole shared that his husband had died 6 years ago, and since then, silence had been his only company. Ethan listened, surprised by the honesty. At one point, Cole said, "Loneliness makes people do strange things. Sometimes it makes them cruel, sometimes kind, and sometimes, confused." Ethan met his gaze across the table. There was no hunger in it, only an ache he recognized in himself. For a brief moment, he saw not a landlord, but a man who had been just as lost. Hours passed unnoticed. The candle burned low, and rain began to tap against the window. The city outside blurred into streaks of silver and gold. Ethan felt the weight in his chest ease, replaced by a strange calm he hadn't known he needed. When he finally stood to leave, Mr. Cole followed him to the door. Neither spoke. The silence between them said more than words could, but as Ethan turned the handle, Cole's voice stopped him. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "Not tonight. Not ever. Just, take care of yourself." Ethan turned, searching his expression for hidden motives, but found none. Only sincerity, tinged with quiet sorrow. Outside, the hallway light flickered as Ethan walked back to his apartment. His mind swirled with questions he couldn't answer. Why had Cole changed his tone? Why did part of him feel relief, even warmth? On his small kitchen table, a folded note awaited him. He hadn't noticed it before. Cole must have left it earlier. The handwriting was neat. "No rent this month. Don't mistake kindness for charity. The world breaks all of us, some just find gentler ways to survive. Ethan sat down slowly, tracing the words with his thumb. His chest tightened, but not from shame this time, from gratitude he didn't know how to express. As the rain deepened outside, he leaned back, closed his eyes, and let the sound wash over him. For the first time in months, he didn't feel entirely alone. But that fragile peace carried a shadow, the quiet understanding that this night, however kind, had changed something inside him that he didn't know yet if it was healing or damage. Only that it was real, and real things, he had learned, always come with consequences. The following morning broke with a pale light filtering through the truck's windshield. Daniel stirred awake, surprised by how easily the hum of the road had lulled him into rest. Chris was already up, leaning against the hood of the truck, smoking and laughing at something on his phone. Mike sat nearby, sipping his coffee in silence, his posture steady as always. Breakfast at a roadside cafe unfolded like a scene Daniel hadn't realized he craved. There was laughter at Chris's endless stories, the kind that animated even the dullest details. Mike, though less talkative, offered occasional insights that revealed depth behind his stoic exterior. Daniel found himself enjoying the way their differences balanced one another, the stability of one, the fire of the other. Back on the road, Daniel sat in the middle seat between them. The closeness felt charged. The cab was filled with music, jokes, and the kind of atmosphere that makes hours pass unnoticed. Yet beneath it all, a subtle undercurrent pulled at Daniel. Every time Chris brushed against him, whether to adjust the radio or stretch his arms, Daniel felt it linger more than it should. Chris noticed. His grin grew sharper, more deliberate, as if he were testing invisible boundaries. "You don't talk much about home," Chris said suddenly, eyes flicking toward Daniel. Daniel shifted, aware of Mike's silent focus on the road. "Not much to say." "Or maybe too much," Chris replied, his voice lowering in a way that felt almost intimate. The words hung between them. Daniel tried to laugh it off, but guilt tightened in his chest. Ethan's face flashed in his mind, trusting, expectant, unaware. Daniel turned toward the window, letting the endless horizon distract him. Still, Chris's gaze pressed against him, unrelenting. By mid-afternoon, rain began to fall, streaking the windshield and muting the world into shades of gray. The truck pulled into a rest stop, the storm too heavy to push through. Inside the cabin, the silence felt heavier than the downpour outside. Mike stepped out to check the tires, leaving Daniel and Chris alone. The quiet stretched, broken only by the sound of rain. Chris leaned closer, his voice dropping to a murmur. "You look like someone carrying too much." Daniel exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping. "Maybe I am." "You don't have to explain," Chris said softly. "I can see it." For a heartbeat, their eyes locked. It wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was recognition, a pull neither wanted to name aloud. Daniel's resolve wavered. He knew he should shift back, create space, think of Ethan. Instead, he stayed still, every nerve alive with temptation. Chris's hand brushed against his, subtle yet intentional. Daniel didn't pull away. The contact was brief, but the choice not to resist was louder than words. Something had shifted, irreversible in its quietness. The passenger door opened suddenly. Mike climbed back in, water dripping from his jacket. His eyes flicked to them, sharp and unreadable. He said nothing, starting the engine with practiced ease. The truck rolled back onto the highway, the storm chasing them from behind. Daniel sat rigid, his thoughts a storm of their own. Had Mike seen? Did it matter? The guilt of what had just happened twisted inside him, but alongside it came an undeniable thrill. For the first time in years, he felt noticed, seen in ways Ethan no longer managed. That realization frightened him as much as it exhilarated him. Chris leaned back casually, pretending nothing had happened, though the smirk tugging at his lips betrayed him. Mike's silence, however, carried weight. The air in the cab was no longer filled with laughter and music. Instead, it pulsed with unspoken tension, every mile stretching it thinner. Daniel stared out the windshield, heart racing, wondering how much longer he could balance on the line between loyalty and desire. The road ahead promised answers he wasn't ready to face.